combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we have another Jimmy Rants episode in store for you here today. And so we're here with another Jimmy Rants episode. I hope you're going to sit back, relax, enjoy today's show, because we have a goodie for you. People still ask questions about the topic we're going to talk about here today. Even though I wrote a whole book about it a couple of years ago, they still have questions and doubts about the veracity of what we're going to talk about here today. So, welcome in. JimmyRants.com is the website if you want to access all of these Jimmy Rants that I do. So what is Jimmy Rants? It is probably the first of its kind show. What I do is I start off here on Instagram Live, so that's where I'm recording live. All of my peeps are down there coming in and chiming in. At Living Low Carb Man on Instagram, if you want to follow me and watch these live. I generally do them in the morning and the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, and so go follow me at Living Low Carb Man on Instagram, and then it'll be up there for 24 hours that you can watch the replay. But if you miss the replay or you don't follow me on Instagram, you can watch these on YouTube. And I'm over on YouTube. If you type in Jimmy Rants on the YouTube, you should be able to find them. Or you can just go to JimmyRants.com. You should be able to go right to all of these archived videos. And I believe we're about ready to announce that the audio podcast, the Jimmy Rants podcast, is coming. So stay tuned for all that. But today's rant, let's get right to it, you guys. Today's Jimmy Rants is all about why fasting is not starvation, and other common myths that you hear out there about fasting. So some people look at fasting as the other F word. So, oh my gosh, why would you ever starve yourself when you go on a fast? That's a very common refrain that I've heard from people talking about fasting. Oh my gosh, you're just starving yourself. And so let me clear the air right away. Starvation is a very serious thing. Starvation is when someone is not eating, but it's not their choice. They are being forced to not eat. So you think about some of the hostages, people that are taken captive by terrorists. They're probably starved, so they're forced into starvation. That's not what we're talking about with fasting. Fasting is your choice. You make the choice of when you want to start fasting, and all fasting is not eating. So if you're not eating, guess what? You're fasting. Every single one of us does fasting every single day when you're not eating between meals, and especially when you sleep, unless you sleep eat and you're kind of weird. So fasting is a normal part of our day-to-day. So what are we talking about with fasting? Fasting is where, okay, you have an overnight fast where you're sleeping. You wake up the next morning, and just because it's 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning does not mean you need to eat breakfast. Okay? So if you wake up in the morning and you're not that hungry, guess what? You don't have to eat breakfast in the traditional form. And I put breakfast in quotation marks because look at the word. The word is break fast. So you've been fasting all day or all night while you sleep, and you wake up the next morning. If you're not ready to break your fast because you're not hungry, there is no obligation that you need to put food in your pie hole. None. Zero. So let's say you finished eating your last meal at 6 p.m. the night before. You go to sleep. You have a good night's sleep. You wake up the next morning. You're not hungry. And then you don't have your break fast until noon the next day. You just fasted for a total of 18 hours. Okay? You did not starve yourself. You weren't purposely harming yourself in any way because you just weren't hungry. And see, when you go keto, when you add in the element of fueling your body mostly with fat, and you become a keto-adapted fat burner, fasting that way is extremely easy. So let's end this notion that fasting is starvation, because it is not. With fasting, if at any moment during a fast you feel hungry or you feel like you need to eat, guess what you do? You eat. That's what you do. So starvation, some of those people that are having to be starved, if they get hungry and they need to eat and their body's giving them all the signals that they need to eat, what do? That they can't eat. And so they truly are starving. They're probably in a stressed state, which would make the starvation even worse on their body. So it's not good. So that's the primary myth I wanted to bust here about fasting here today. Fasting is not, did I mention not starvation? But there's other things that are out there. Well, fasting is an eating disorder. I've heard that one a lot. Oh, if you're not eating, oh, you must be doing something wrong because you got to eat. And again, it's that cultural norm of you have to have breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack, midnight snack, and if you don't fall in that paradigm, you've got an eating disorder. And for a lot of us that eat a ketogenic diet, we probably end up eating maybe once or twice a day at the most. Most people that are keto adapted, they're not eating more than 2, at very maximum 3 meals, and none of them that I know of are actually snacking between meals in their day-to-day ketogenic approach. And so if you're trying to fast and you're doing it between meals and it's very natural, why would anybody think that's an eating disorder? And even people that push the fasting window a little longer than intermittent, and maybe they do a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days, even up to a week, that's not an eating disorder. That's someone choosing to do something positive about their health. And there's so many great benefits to fasting. I'm not going to rehash all of them here. Definitely go get my book that I wrote with Dr. Jason Fung called The Complete Guide to Fasting if you want to learn more about the benefits and the implementation of fasting. What we're addressing here is all of these myths that people have about fasting. So you're not starving yourself. You don't have an eating disorder. So some people might be like, well, what's the point in not going with food? I could never do that. That seems extreme. You know what extreme is? Extreme is people going to McDonald's and ordering a Big Mac, a supersized fry, and a Coca-Cola. Can I tell you how extreme that is? Because if you look at what that is giving someone as far as nutrition, it's next to nothing. Those French fries devoid of any good nutrition and loaded with lots of bad vegetable oil fats that are highly inflammatory. The soda has lots of high fructose corn syrup, which is sugary, which will mess with hormones and blood sugar. The bread and the fake processed meat that's on that burger, the Big Mac, and all the junk that they put on there. That's the extreme. We've got to redefine what extreme is. So when someone chooses not to eat for a period of time, why do we think that's abnormal, right? So if you think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, what did they have to do from time to time when food was scarce? That's right. They had to go without eating. Sorry, there's an ambulance driving by. They had to go without eating for a period of time. And so if they couldn't eat, they still had to go and hunt down an animal or go and gather vegetation, something to consume. Well, in those periods of time when they didn't have access to food, what did they do? They had to fast, sometimes upwards of 3, 5, 7, 10, even 20 days at a time that they didn't have any food at all. So our bodies are naturally built to be fasting. And especially those of us that have extra weight on the body, we really can be highly adept at using our stored body fat for energy. So I would not call a fasting approach an extreme approach. I would say fasting is extremely normal within the context of listening to your body and knowing when you need to eat and when you need to not eat. Okay? So, I could go down a whole myriad of myths about fasting that are out there. But the bottom line that I want to communicate in this Jimmy Rants is fasting is normal. Everybody, every single day is intermittent fasting. You right now, you're watching this. If you're not actively putting food in your mouth while you're watching this, guess what? You're fasting. So I want to demystify this whole idea that fasting is this weird, strange concept. It's normal. And once you start feeding your body well with real whole foods, once you start nourishing it with the kind of diet that's right for you, for me it's a ketogenic approach, for a lot of you it is as well. And once you start experiencing all the benefits that come from satiation and getting healthy fats in your diet and getting micronutrients in your diet, getting your gut health in order, when all of that is in line, you're going to find that sometimes you will forget to eat. And it's that forgetting to eat that allows your body to fast. So we got to demystify and stop vilifying this whole fasting concept, because it is completely normal. Let's see what you got to say. If you have any myths that you want to have busted about fasting, please put those down there as well. But welcome in, guys. Thanks for being here. Hello, New Bill Janet. Keto Neogenesis says, I just finished an 18-hour fast, and as a first for me, I only fixed enough food instead of overeating. I'm determined to get this under control and intermittent fasting on the regular for at least 18 hours. And it's so easy, Beth. Thank you for sharing that. It's so easy. You eat your last meal of the day at 6 o'clock at night. Then you have the overnight fast while you're sleeping. You wake up the next morning, you're not really hungry, and then you push the fasting window all the way to noon the next day. When you do that, you very easily fasted for 18 hours. Then you have between 12 and 6 to get your 2 meals in. So you could eat right at noon and then right at like 5:45 or so, and then the cycle starts all over again. So it's a pretty easy way to get that intermittent fast in. So kudos to you for, and then having the food ready to go. Hello, Olga. Thanks for being here. I have a question. When I eat 1 meal a day, if all I eat is 1 meal, could it possibly make me hypocaloric and make it not beneficial? So thank you for that question. Very insightful. Yes. So when you break a fast, or if you eat 1 meal a day, so you're fasting for 23 hours and 45 minutes a day, however long it takes you to eat, you need to try to get as much of the nutrition in that 1 meal that you're going to have, and you don't want to undereat, because if you undereat, then that's actually more detrimental to your body than if you overate, okay? So you want to make sure you get all the calories in. If you're going to do that 1 meal, you get all the calories in that you need in the right ratios that you need for your body to be in a state of nutritional ketosis. I'm all in favor of 1 meal a day. I don't think it's a good strategy to do every single day. I think it's a good strategy to maybe slide in a 1 meal a day 1 to 2 times a week, and then every time else try to do intermittent fasting of that kind of 16 to 18 hours. That's where you get the most benefit. I've been getting much better at intermittent fasting. I found a crusty wart-like thing on my elbow and saw it disappear within a few weeks. I've had for years. Win-win. So yes, when you fast, so many things happen good in your body that until you do it for a few days, you can't really know what it's going to do. And I'm really happy to hear about the wart thing. There is this thing called autophagy. So it's this process where the body has all these excess proteins just floating around in it. And if you fast for just 3 days, 3 days, guys, is all it takes, 72 hours of not eating any food at all, you clean up all of those dead proteins that are just floating around in your body. You don't need them in there. They don't serve any good purpose, so autophagy helps to clear them out. And the best way to create autophagy is to fast. In fact, the Nobel Prize winner in medicine in 2016, that's what he won it for his work looking at the role fasting plays in autophagy. Hello, Crystal. Thanks for being here. And technically, when your body is in autophagy, you're eating. That's exactly right. You're having those proteins and also the fats off of your body. Barnyard Coffee says, my daughter wakes up and is hungry within an hour, feels ill if she doesn't eat. So it's usually an 11 to 12 hour fast. Good enough. Well, I'm not going to tell you how to parent your daughter, and I don't know the metabolic state of your daughter, if she has general unhealthiness in her life in any way. If she's generally healthy and doing well and the appropriate weight and everything's good in her health, I think 11 to 12 hours is perfectly fine for a fast for a kid. So I would not force fasting on children. Again, not knowing how old she is, that's a big thing. If she's 17, maybe. But if she's 8, probably not. 11 to 12 hours is perfectly fine. But if she has type 2 diabetes or has obesity or has other, metabolic issues going on, it might be helpful to try to push it a little bit. But if she's feeling hungry when she wakes up, perhaps get to the root cause of why she's feeling hungry. How are you feeding her nutritionally in the day-to-day? Maybe dialing that part in before you start thinking about any kind of fasting. Dial that part in, and that might help. We always tell our kids, that McDonald's is stomach filler and not food. I like that, stomach filler. Empty calories is what I always heard. I can't stand the smell of fast food. The oil they cook in stinks so bad. Yeah, Crystal, I agree. We have a Hardee's that we drive by, and you can smell it. It's just gross. Olga says, I love one meal a day so that my body only has insulin response once a day, trying to lower my A1C. It's currently at 5.9. The insulin response is one thing, but just lowering of the inflammation levels is another thing. Just everything good happens about the body when you give your pancreas a break. And lowering stress, Olga, is a big one too. You can have an insulin response from not eating if you're stressed, so be aware of that as well. I love fasting. Thank you, Crystal. I do too. A few weeks ago, I started to feel a hot, scratchy throat. Instinctively, I fasted for about 48 hours, cleaned it right up. Awesome. What is considered under eating? I would think anything for a woman under 1,200 calories is eating too few calories. I think a woman needs probably at least 1,400 to 1,500 calories to be well nourished, and of course the quality of the calories matters as well. So anything under 1,200 is probably not a good idea. You could probably get away if you're doing one meal a day with 1,200, but don't let that happen day after day after day after day. Try to get adequate calories. As far as a man goes, I don't think a man should eat under 1,500 calories, and optimally probably 1,800 to 2,000 is probably good. Finally caught one of your lives at work. Awesome. Thanks for being here, my keto teen friend. By the way, Brittany, I was bragging on you at my book signing the other day. Somebody came to it and she had 3 teenage kids. And she's like, I don't know how to get them to care about keto. I've tried to talk to them as much as I can about it. And I said, oh, but wait, let me tell you about Brittany Bolsterbaum. And so, Keto Teen, I definitely shared all about you and was bragging all over you. Can fasting help lymphedema? Well, lymphedema is a very serious issue. I know keto indirectly can help with it, but it's certainly no cure for it. I don't see a downside with it because lymphedema definitely is one of those things where lowering the inflammation is going to be key. So you got to think of all of these modalities like fasting, like keto, as inflammation lowering. So it could be nothing but a good thing. There's certainly no harm in it. Will it be the cure for it? Probably not. But can it reduce the sites and improve the disease? I think it can. Amy Marm Brewster says, I've got an interesting question. Oh, I love interesting questions, Amy. I had bariatric surgery. It can be tough to eat enough at one meal to do a whole lot of fasting. Any ideas? Do more like 2 to 3 days water fast every 3. So bariatric patients, you're different. I think for you guys, because of the limitation on the amount of food that you can eat at a time, intermittent fasting is probably not wise because you just can't get enough in those 1 to 2 meals. So I think for someone who's had bariatric surgery, I think 3 meals is a pretty good idea. Now, can you fit those 3 meals into a tight window of, say, 10 hours, maybe 8 hours? Maybe that would give you some benefit. But I would listen to your body, because if you get deep into a fast of, say, 12, 14 hours, and you're starting to feel hungry because your body didn't get enough nutrition at the last meal, pay attention to your body. So that's a great question, though. In general, I don't think bariatric patients, people that have had gastric bypass or other types of weight loss surgery, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to push the fasting thing. Test it, try it, see how you do, but I'm a little concerned about you guys, because you have a whole nother set of obstacles you have to deal with. Hello, George. Thanks for being here. My daughter's 21. Oh, the earlier one about the daughter. 21. Yeah, buck up. Do it. She is at a healthy weight, so I don't think she necessarily needs to do it. She's 5'6", 135 pounds. I think, though, getting into the discipline of fasting is probably a good idea. So, yeah, 21 is an adult. So when you said daughter, I wasn't sure if you were talking about a little girl. So good to know. She is an adult. She could probably do it. I would encourage her, maybe incentivize her. Hey, I'll do this fast with you. If you'll do it, I'll give you, whatever. Bribe her. Bribe always works with teenagers and early 20s. So, Liz Plowman, do you want to change macros after adapted, and if so, how? So we're talking about fasting here today. Thank you for that question. But that's not what we're talking about here today. If you're just joining us, we're doing a Jimmy Rants, and the rant is about why fasting is not starvation and other common myths about fasting. So definitely ask that question when I'm talking about macros or talking about keto, but not today. Olga says, I rarely get stressed, even working as a bill collector. I take it easy. Well, good for you. Let's see here. I have bariatric surgery. I fast 16 hours daily, and on the weekends I push it to 20. Crystal, great job. And I think if you tinker and test to see how you do, that's the way to do it. 12 hours can be tough to fast, says Amy. So yeah, well, do the best you can. If all you can do is an overnight fast and you get in your 3 meals the next day and you're doing pretty well in your keto, then stick with keto. And see, here's the thing. A lot of people think, well, I need to fast because that's the only way I can bring my insulin levels down and all the other things that get better. But I'm like, you know what? If you want to think of keto as kind of a fed fasting, it sounds kind of weird to say fed fasting, but if you want to think of keto in that way, it's mimicking the effects of fasting. In fact, when this was first discovered was when in the early 1920s, they were putting type 2 diabetics on several days worth of fasting just to see if it would help improve their symptoms and everything. And they saw everything get drastically better by like the 3rd day. Insulin levels come down, blood sugar come down, all of these things got better. And they're like, what in the world's going on? And that's when they discovered the molecule ketones. And then they're like, how do we create ketones without basically not feeding these patients? So that's when they discovered restricting the carbohydrates and keeping the protein down and having higher fat was what helped them. And it ended up being a 4-to-1 ratio of fat to protein and carbohydrate. So 4 parts fat to 1 part a combination of protein and carbohydrate. So that's where we get the low carb, moderate protein, high fat. And that mimics the effects of fasting. So if you're not a fan of fasting, and there are a few people that aren't fans of fasting or can't do it like Amy because of her gastric bypass, then a ketogenic diet should mimic those effects if you do it in those ratios that I just explained. Do you do water only during a fast, and does bone broth qualify? So when I first started fasting, I did it with bone broth and kombucha, thinking I needed those things for nutrition. You know what those things did? They made me hungry. So if you get hungry while you're fasting, is that a good idea? No. I'm going to say it again. No, it's not a good idea. So what I've ended up doing is water and sea salt. If you get water and sea salt in while you fast, then you get all the benefits that come from fasting. You don't get the stoking of the cravings, which is what happened, and stoking of the hunger, which is what happened when I had the kombucha and when I had the bone broth. So stay away from those things. Do water and salt, and you'll thank me later. All right, guys, that's it for this Jimmy Rants. Go to jimmyrants.com. And you can access my Instagram channel right down there. I got live people right now on the recording of this. I record twice a day on Instagram at Livin' Low Carb Man if you want to go follow me there. And we do these in the morning and the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. And then, yeah, you can go over to JimmyRants.com, see all of the videos of the replays of all these. And coming soon, we got the Jimmy Rants podcast. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. And if you're watching this on or near the release of the video, right now, the Kindle version of the Complete Guide to Fasting, my new book, or not new book, my old book on fasting that we released a couple of years ago, Amazon around the world has it on sale for like $3 US. $3, you guys, to get the Complete Guide to Fasting on Kindle ebook. So go grab it while you can. I don't know how long they're going to keep it on sale, but that's the best deal I've ever seen on that book. That has become the go-to resource about fasting. If you want to learn more and you're a Kindle ebook subscriber, go get that book, and it'll teach you all you ever wanted to know about fasting. So thanks for watching, you guys. This is so much fun. I hope you enjoyed these Jimmy Rants. Again, JimmyRants.com is the website. And until next time, we'll see you then.